Hello and welcome to Ward Talk, CTN's look at the political scene in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Bonnie Gabowitz. We'll be discussing issues and solutions with the City Council members from our 5 wards on the 3rd Wednesday of each month. Joining us today is Sumi Kailasapathy. Sumi, thank you so much for coming. It's been a while since you were here last time. It's been over a year, and we have heard from Ward 1 before, but certainly we welcome your input and your observations and your report on what's happening. So let's just start with Ward 1 first, yes, since that's your particular neighborhood.
Correct. Thank you. I think I'd like to touch upon 3 issues, just to give you an update as to the issues pertaining to Ward 1. One is that you probably heard that 3 large developments were approved in the northeast corner of Nixon. And there is going to be a roundabout constructed there. There is the Nixon-Dubaran Green Road intersection. So once school closes, there is going to be, the road is going to be completely closed, and the roundabout is being planned to be constructed.
And when will that be started? Is there a time frame?
Yeah, I think it's they're closing on June 18th. And then once school starts, it will be open again to minimize inconvenience for the residents and the schools.
And could you explain how the roundabout helps the flow of traffic compared to a simple straight intersection?
But there isn't a simple straight intersection. It is a 4-way stop, but you know it is not a straight line, because the Dubaran and Green Road are not a straight road. There is kind of a break. So they say in a intersection, in a roundabout, traffic flow is smoother because people are not stopping. But the issue with the roundabout is it might be the most efficient in terms of making people move on the roundabout itself, but there are many egresses on Nixon. So if the traffic is moving really smoothly and fast, then there isn't going to be enough gaps for people to get out of their streets or homes. So that's the issue. So not to bring in the budget issues here, but we did pass a budget amendment, Council Member Jane Lum and I, to make sure that the design work for the road is also done for the Nixon Road, because it's not sufficient to just have one roundabout on the Nixon-Dubaran Green Junction, because then people cannot get out. So there will be multiple intersections on the Nixon Road between Dubaran and the Kroger roundabout.
So that sounds like quite an improvement.
Yeah, it is going to be, but it was going to be, we had to wait for 5 to 7 years, which we felt was really not fair, because the residents, when they turned out 30, 40 of them for the Planning Commission and the City Hall meeting, the council members who voted for it basically promised them that the infrastructural needs would be taken care of. So I think we should just keep our word and make sure that residents don't suffer as a result of our decision to put high density in those areas.
So there are 3 projects going on in your neighborhood in terms of new developments?
Yes, Nixon North, Nixon South, and Woodbury Club, correct. And each of them on the average about 250 units. So total about 750 new units, which they say on the average would be about another 1,500 vehicles coming. So that's one issue. The second issue I want to talk about is, you would have probably heard about the deer issue. It is the worst in Ward 1 and Ward 2.
Did they get a report yet?
Yes, they did. Yes. Not only the city staff gave a report after the cull, but what I really want to talk about is Jacqueline Coteau. She's a research scientist at University of Michigan. She did a study to look at what happens to red oak saplings. So what happens, the browse. So she studied the browse, and she basically, her numbers were pretty scary. In Ward 1, the browse rate was anywhere between 20 to 90%. But if the browse rate is over 15%, forests and natural areas don't regenerate. So the
And
trees don't.
that upsets the whole balance of nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. So even though a couple of city council members, actually my ward colleague Jason Frenzel and the mayor and Chip Smith brought in a resolution to divert deer cull money to environmental causes, I voted against it, and my argument was preserving parks and natural areas is environmental. I think preserving trees is the ultimate environmental objective, I think. So,
and you really can't go back once you lose some of that. The plants, it's hard to go back and recreate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the reason I voted against diverting the money. So the deer cull is going to go on, and we also got good data from the white buffalo contractors who did the deer cull and the sterilization this year. They said basically there are 450 deer in the Ward 1 and 2 area, and there's going to be this spring an additional 150 new babies coming in. So there'll be about 600. That's not the carrying capacity for that area. So we will continue with the cull and the sterilization, and hopefully we can bring the herd numbers to a manageable phase. Then at that phase it will be an annual maintenance of maybe $25,000 a year. We wouldn't be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. So just want to let you know that's one other issue. The third issue I want to just touch upon is the core project, the library lot. I did vote against it, but the majority of council members voted for the development. The reason I voted against it, I strongly feel in a democracy there has to be public space that's publicly owned, publicly programmed. I really don't think in a democracy everything is for sale, and everything should not be for sale. And I really believe in maintaining the public sphere. And right now we have sold it, and there is going to be an 18-story building there. And we heard from hundreds of local business people and local residents who were really upset about just the size of it. I think it's very disrespectful when you have very small buildings all around, and then you put a Goliath right in the middle. It just doesn't, it's not fair by our residents. So that's the reason. And that's going to be another mess.
Are you still hearing from residents about this?
We did, and now I guess we'll start hearing when the design phase comes in and when it goes to planning commission. But that was another issue that really affected Ward 1 residents, and we heard from hundreds and hundreds of them. So these are the three issues that I wanted to tell.
And that's the experience of frustration you can have when you're on a council of varying viewpoints. As much as you passionately feel one way, it doesn't necessarily mean that the vote will go through. And
Absolutely.
It's just part of the frustration of being on the council.
And I believe in representative government. So when local businesses and residents tell me this is just way too big, a lot of them weren't against. They didn't say they didn't want any development. Most people did want development, but they just wanted to scale, and this just isn't to scale. So yeah.
Okay.
So these were the three.
Well, we have a lot to talk about in terms of the whole city. I understand you're involved with the Human Rights Commission, and there's some work going on right now with looking at police oversight.
Absolutely.
So I know you want to discuss that.
Absolutely. I am the liaison, City Council liaison to the Human Rights Commission, and right now there's an independent auditor looking at community police relations in Ann Arbor. There were two parts to it. One is to look at the police department itself, look at their policies, procedures, and evaluating it in terms of best practices. The second part is, of course, community outreach. So I want to make sure that residents who are listening to this, please take part in it. There are two ways you can take part in it. There is a community listening session. One already occurred in the downtown library. If you missed it, please go to the Bryant Center on June 13th. The listening session is between 6 to 8:30. The independent auditors are there, and the downtown library one was really good because people came in with lots of issues and their interactions with the police and the problems they have faced. So it's really important to have the feedback from you. If you can't make it to that, there is also link online where you can take a survey. It's www.surveymonkey.com /R as in rabbit /Ann Arbor PD for police department. Please do go and take the survey. The survey closes on June 30th. And in order to have good data and to make good decisions, in order to how to set up a police advisory / oversight board, it is important that the auditors have a comprehension of all the issues pertaining to the police community relations.
So once they get the report and there are some recommendations that come in, then the police department looks at how they can institute these changes. And maybe provide more training or whatever it is.
Absolutely. That's one part of it, but the other part of it is the Human Rights Commission wanted to see what kind of a civilian oversight that can be set up over there. Because there are no checks and balances right now with the police department, which was very clear at the listening session, because if you have a problem or an incident with the police department, you go to the chief of the police to let them know about. And
there needs to be another avenue.
Absolutely. And at the national level, we are seeing right now how important it is to have checks and balances. And if not for that, I mean, if the power is concentrated, it's really dangerous. So again, I want to say we have a great police force in Ann Arbor. It's not an indictment against them, but this is more about democratic principles, and democratic principles are checks and balances, and you make sure that power is not concentrated.
And it's always a matter of improving upon what's good already.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's the time frame of when the report, well, it'll probably take several months for the report?
No, I think it's the end of summer, the report should be coming. Yeah.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, I know we have a lot to talk about because I understand you finalized the budget recently.
Yeah, Monday.
So when we come back, we'll talk about some of the aspects of the budget, because that was a long process.
It was, yeah.
Taking in all the information and making decisions.
Yep.
So we'll come back to that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. We want to hear from you, so please email us questions to ctn@a2gov.org or tweet us at #CTN in Arbor. We're taking a break now, and we'll be back with more from Ward 1.
I just wish there was some place I could watch my favorite local TV shows. Whoa! Cool, where am I?
You are in a computer terminal.
Who said that?
I am the god of computers. I heard your wish and granted you access to my terminal.
Really? I've always wanted to be inside one of these things. So what's next?
Visit CTN's and the City of Ann Arbor's streaming and video on demand a2gov.org/watchctn.
What do I do there?
Here you can watch city meetings, community produced programs, school board and education programming, and a whole lot more.
Yes! This is great!
The live streams include CTN's 4 channels: government, public, educational, and community. Just click the sidebar for the channel you prefer and click play.
I can watch 4 channels. Cool.
The video on demand option lists city meetings and CTN series in drop-down folders for a quick and easy viewing process. Programs are listed by dates, or you can sort by title.
Are you kidding me? I wish I knew about this earlier.
Visit a2gov.org/watchctn for CTN live streams and video on demand.
That's great. Now I can go tell my friends. Once I leave.
Goodbye.
Hello?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz, and this is Ward Talk. We are talking about Ward 1 as well as everything that has to do with Ann Arbor with our Ward 1 Council Member, Sumi Kailasapathy. And we were talking a lot about your ward. Now we're going to go into the city issues, the general issues, and you just finalized the budget. This is a 2-year budget. And I know there was a lot of discussion, a lot of decisions to be made. So tell us the highlights if you can.
Yeah, the highlight for many of us was safety of the local residents. The death of a high school student, Justin Tang, end of last year really got our parents and residents thinking about focusing on safety of our children, the most precious asset we have in this city. So you might have heard about this great group of mothers who got together. Aid to Safe Transit is the group. So they have been following what's going on in the city. They have been attending council meetings, and they have done a great survey interfacing with the schools and prioritizing for us what are the problems in each school area, which has been great, because otherwise we would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting consultants to do this. And these are moms, a lot of them are professors, they have PhDs, they know statistical methods, and they did surveys actually. Wonderful.
So this is a real grassroots effort.
Absolutely grassroots level, and I really agree with them, because I mean, yeah, you can think about big trains and million-dollar projects, but these are low-hanging fruits. If you can get our schools and walking and biking paths safe, we can move a lot of children. Parents don't need to be dropping them off.
Which again creates a lot more traffic as well.
Absolutely, and it's healthier for the children, and environmentally we are doing the right thing. So I think the focus for many of us, or some of us, that this budget cycle was to make sure that we have the funds to make this a reality, because they have come out and told us what the priorities are, and we know what the priorities are, and it just doesn't cut it to say that we don't have the funds. One problem I had with the current budget presented by the city administrator was he had allocated over $100,000 for a chief of staff, his assistant, to be in.
This would be a new position.
New position, and these are all internally driven. It's not, for me, I see it as we need to be first serving people, and for me, creating overheads at this point, maybe if economic growth is so much and we are flush with cash, we can be doing this. And the DDA was had a line item for over 100,000 again for a communication specialist. So these are things that I feel could be spent better on. We took some budget amendments, some of them passed, some of them didn't. Council Member Lum and I and Jack Eaton took a budget amendment to add lighting, because there are crosswalks that don't have lights. Have you seen
so
that?
is this lighting around schools or
That's
general
going to
lighting
be
in the city?
Well, crosswalk lighting, it could be anywhere, but we are trying to focus on school. For the school safety infrastructure, there was another budget amendment for 450,000, which was going to cut in all this additional staffing that we were going to put in, which were overheads, which did not pass, unfortunately. So lighting is the plus point I feel is going to happen with the and you asked me what kinds of issues that are coming up. A lot of it is safe crosswalks, whether it's the rapid flashing beacons or just marked crosswalks. And another issue that we took a budget amendment was to hire 2 additional police officers to be dedicated to school safety around school areas and neighborhoods where there is a lot of traffic, because you might have noticed that in Ann Arbor we are really pushing for density. More and more development is coming in, and we are almost indiscriminate.
It's already here.
Yeah, it's already here, and we are just push. So I think it's really important, if we are pushing that kind of density in, there has to be traffic enforcement. I know you probably would have seen all this speed limits around school areas. Yeah, it's great to have.
And I've noticed the speed limits are different. They vary. They're not all real low speed limits either.
Exactly. So what is important is to enforce. I think police enforcement is almost like, I'm a CPA, so I'll take an example from my own field. It's like audits. Let's assume that you file your tax returns and there's never going to be an audit. Can you imagine? I mean, you're honest, you're probably going to do the same, I'm going to do the same, but people who want to cheat, they can cheat and they can put in any number they want because they know there won't be an audit. I think police is similar, because a lot of people say police can't be everywhere. No, they cannot be everywhere. But that randomness, that they can be somewhere is what is going to make those people who speed. I'm not saying everybody, maybe 80% of the people never speed. They follow rules. That 20% who risk everybody else.
And plus, we have a new problem lately in that people are distracted drivers, which wasn't a problem maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah,
but we have
so many
busy
gadgets.
people who have other things on their mind, or they're doing things while they're driving.
Absolutely. It's not even bad people. Exactly.
Right.
You're very, that's a very good point. So what I feel is, so that budget amendment failed. I mean, we couldn't get the additional to police, which is a real pity, because without enforcement, it's like without audits. I mean, you can put up the sign, but people will follow the sign, but the people who don't follow, there are no consequences. So I just hope even during mid-year we can make sure that we bring a budget amendment and do that, because without enforcement, I think you can have all the best infrastructure, but rule breakers are going to break the rules.
Is this parent group, will they still be involved in
Absolutely.
making observations and
Yeah,
recommendations?
absolutely. I think they're getting very politicized, that I think they might even start running for office and things like that, because they're seeing, I mean, I'm getting from them the feedback that they are watching, and they feel like some politicians don't reflect the priorities of the people who put them in office. And I think, not to hark back to the national level politics, but I hear that Trump being president, a lot of local level politics, what people are seeing is people are getting invigorated, running for office, because it doesn't cut it anymore to just have spectator politics. You're just watching and feeling upset.
Would you say there's more of an increase in residents contacting you and speaking up?
Absolutely, absolutely, and showing interest in running.
And that helps you do your job properly, because you really know what the pulse of the community is.
Absolutely, absolutely. People communicate with me, they call all the time, and they email us, and I go meet them one-on-one. No, I definitely see, instead of just sending out requests, more and more people are telling me they're really interested in running. They're telling me, would you help us? We really want to learn. And just to show an example, I mean, this August in the Democratic primary, there is a competitive race in every single ward, which is very different from what happened last August. I think there were 3 wards, there was no elections because the incumbent, nobody challenged. So these are all good signs that people become, regular citizens become involved in politics, and then they tend to reflect more of the priorities of the people instead of career politicians, because then they are always looking out for the next step. Oh, I want to become the state rep, or I want to become the mayor. You're doing, there's a political calculus that comes in, and we want good representational government here, where you represent the will of the people.
Right. And plus we're becoming a larger city, we're getting more of a population, so it's very helpful to hear from all of the constituents. We have just a minute left.
Okay.
I know time goes quickly, but I did want to mention that the city has just recently articulated exactly where they stand with the immigration issue in terms of what would happen if federal agents come in, and what protections we still have for them. In the minute left, if you could tell us something about that.
I was one of the co-sponsors of it's called the non-solicitation ordinance, and it's on the books now. City of Ann Arbor city employees, whether it's the police or any other social worker, they are not allowed to ask about the residency status of a person. You're supposed to serve them, it's irrelevant. So we did pass that, that's in the books, and we have also passed a companion resolution, will indemnify any employee as a result of doing their job as we have prescribed. If they get into trouble, the city will protect them. So that's the otherwise, let's say a police officer might feel like, oh, what if the federal agents kind of take me to courts or whatever. So we will be protecting our employees, which is really great, because on that issue, I think the entire city hall and all the residents are behind us. It's an issue that's not very divisive. People, Ann Arbor residents, vast majority of them are very clear that we are all hardworking, we are honest, and we value diversity. Which is wonderful.
And we do call Ann Arbor a welcoming community.
Absolutely.
And we were just voted as the top city in the country by one of the polls, so that says a lot about Ann Arbor.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm delighted to have you today.
Thank you.
And we've covered some really important topics. And I look forward to seeing you again.
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Remember to join us for a new episode every third Wednesday of the month. We want to hear from you, so please email us at ctn@a2gov.org, attention Ward Talk. You can also follow CTN and ask questions on Twitter at twitter.com/CTN Ann Arbor. We'll make sure to include your questions. For Ward Talk, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz. Until next month.